Hollywood, 1962. Elizabeth Taylor stands trembling in a hotel bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. 2 black eyes, a misshapen nose, 22 days until she can film again. But this isn't from a movie stunt gone wrong. The man who did this to her, the same one who writes her love letters calling her the fire of his existence, the same one America sees as her perfect romantic partner. Welcome to the dark side of Hollywood's greatest love stories. Today, we're exposing the shocking truth behind 4 of Hollywood's most iconic couples, the ones whose fairy tale romances captivated the world, but whose private lives were absolute nightmares, because what the cameras captured was pure magic. But what happened behind closed doors? Violence, financial slavery, psychological torture, and betrayals so brutal they destroy careers today. These aren't just failed marriages. These are cautionary tales about the human cost of living a lie. First, we'll meet the couple whose volcanic passion literally burned everything around them to ash. Then, the comedy legends who built a television empire to save their marriage, only to have that empire become their poison. Next, the all-American dream that collapsed in just 274 days when a baseball hero's jealousy turned deadly. And finally, the hippie sweethearts whose loving relationship was actually sophisticated financial slavery. But if you think you know these stories, think again, because the truth is so much darker than anyone imagined. Rome, 1962. The set of Cleopatra. Elizabeth Taylor, already a global superstar, meets Richard Burton, a Welsh actor with a reputation for seducing his co-stars. She had zero intention of becoming another notch on his belt, but then came their first on-screen kiss as the legendary lovers Antony and Cleopatra. The chemistry was so explosive that they kept kissing long after the director yelled, "Cut." Years later, Taylor admitted, "I fell in love, and I have loved him ever since." Their affair became a global scandal. Both were married to other people. The Vatican's newspaper literally condemned their erotic vagrancy. But rather than hide, they flaunted it. They divorced their spouses and married in 1964, becoming the ultimate power couple. Life with the Burtons was pure spectacle. Private jets, massive yachts. They'd rent entire hotel floors just for their entourage. The world watched, mesmerized by their passion and luxury. But behind the velvet curtain, something sinister was brewing. Their fights were legendary. At first, Taylor called them delightful screaming matches. Burton said they lived on the edge of an exciting volcano. The media ate it up. America loved the battling Burtons. However, the performance became reality. The alcohol-fueled arguments turned vicious. Then, they turned violent. Studio head Spiros Skouras made a shocking report during Cleopatra filming. Burton had beaten Taylor so badly she suffered 2 black eyes and a broken nose. Filming stopped for 22 days. Publicly, Taylor claimed it was a car accident. But the violence didn't stop there. Reports suggest Burton damaged her eardrum with a punch to the head. They hurled vases at each other during drunken rages. The man who wrote beautiful poetry about her exquisite softness was also capable of brutal physical rage. This wasn't love. This was destruction wearing love's mask. The contradiction tore them apart. They divorced in 1974 after a decade of chaos. Yet their magnetic pull proved irresistible. They remarried in 1975, only to divorce again less than a year later. "I love Richard with every fiber of my soul," Taylor once said, "but we can't be together." But here's the tragic twist. Just days before Burton died, in 1984, he sent Taylor one final letter. It arrived after his memorial service. In it, he asked to come home and give their relationship another chance. Taylor believed until her death that they would have married a third time. Some love stories aren't meant to have happy endings. Some loves destroy everything they touch. Lucy and Desi's marriage was rocky from day one. His touring band meant constant separations, the drinking, the women. By 1944, Lucy had already filed for divorce once, but then she had an idea that would change television forever. When CBS wanted to turn her radio show into a sitcom, Lucy made one non-negotiable demand. Her real-life Cuban husband had to play her TV husband. The network panicked. Would America accept an all-American redhead married to a man with a thick accent? Lucy and Desi formed their own production company to prove them wrong. Their goal was simple and desperate: build a show so they could work together and save their marriage. It worked, sort of. On screen, Lucy and Ricky Ricardo became America's sweethearts. Their chemistry was electric. When Lucy got pregnant in real life, they wrote it into the show, a television first that broke ratings records. But behind the cameras, the marriage was disintegrating faster than ever. Success didn't cure Desi's demons, it amplified them. The wealth meant more opportunities for affairs. The pressure of running a television empire meant more drinking. By 1956, Lucy's biographer reports her saying, "It wasn't even a marriage anymore, just booze and broads." When Scandal Sheet Confidential published an exposé about Desi's womanizing in 1955, Lucy threw the magazine at him and declared, "Hell, I could tell them worse than that." The cruel irony? They'd built their empire to stay together, but that empire provided the very tools for their destruction. The 14-hour workdays, the endless pressure, the money and power that enabled his worst behaviors. In 1960, shortly after filming their final episode together, Lucy filed for divorce for the last time. In court, she tearfully testified, "It got so bad that I thought it would be better for us not to be together." But here's what makes their story unique. Despite everything, they remained deeply in love until the end. Their daughter called it a very successful divorce. They never spoke ill of each other publicly. They remained business partners and best friends. When Desi was dying of lung cancer in 1986, Lucy called him one final time. Their daughter held the phone to his ear so he could hear Lucy say, "I love you," over and over. They gave the country this wonderful creation, their daughter explained. But they never got what they wanted, to stay together. They loved each other until the end. January 14th, 1954, San Francisco City Hall. The ultimate American fairy tale was about to begin. Joe DiMaggio, the legendary Yankee Clipper, America's baseball hero. Marilyn Monroe, the blonde bombshell who'd become the world's sex symbol. When they married, it seemed like destiny. The press went wild. This was the symbolic union of two cherished American ideals: the strong, silent hero and the beautiful, glamorous goddess. But fairy tales don't account for jealousy, or control, or violence. DiMaggio wanted a traditional wife who'd abandon Hollywood to raise his children. Monroe was at the peak of her career with fierce ambitions to become a serious actress. The very thing that made her an icon, her sexuality, was the thing that made her unacceptable as his wife. He couldn't handle men around the world ogling over his wife. The breaking point came in September 1954. Monroe was filming the iconic subway great scene for The 7-Year Itch in New York. As her white dress billowed up and the crowd cheered, DiMaggio watched from the sidelines, becoming visibly irate. This public celebration of his wife's sexuality was the last straw. Multiple accounts suggest he physically assaulted her in their hotel room that night. His own son later alleged that his father was abusive toward Monroe. There were rumors of a broken thumb and other violence stemming from his jealousy. Just 274 days after their fairy tale wedding, a tearful Monroe filed for divorce, citing mental cruelty. But here's the twisted part of this story. Despite the controlling, allegedly abusive marriage, DiMaggio's devotion to Monroe proved lifelong. When she had a mental breakdown in 1961, it was DiMaggio who secured her release from the psychiatric clinic. When she died in 1962, he took control of her funeral, banning the Hollywood figures he blamed for her death. For the next 20 years, DiMaggio sent red roses to her crypt 3 times a week. He never remarried. He reportedly told a friend, "I'll go to my grave, regretting and blaming myself for what happened to her." This wasn't love. This was ownership. When he couldn't control her in life, he possessed her in death. Mid-1960s, bell-bottoms, fur vests, and I Got You Babe. Sonny and Cher were the ultimate counterculture couple, the happy mismatch that proved love conquers all. Their TV variety shows made them America's sweethearts. Short, mustachioed Sonny, tall, striking Cher. Their playful banter charmed millions. But behind the hippie ideal was a calculated system of control that would make a dictator proud. Cher was just 16 when she met 28-year-old Sonny, a high school dropout with abandonment issues. He immediately positioned himself as her protector and father figure. It wasn't fiery or sexy, Cher later explained. It was paternal. We were bound together for protection, but protection became imprisonment. Years later, during their divorce, Cher discovered the shocking truth. A corporation she thought they co-owned called Cher Enterprises, Sonny owned 95%. She owned 5%. She was essentially a salaried employee with no control over her earnings or career choices. She was trapped in what she would legally describe as involuntary servitude. One woman, or even 5, was not enough for him, Cher said about his serial infidelity. But she couldn't leave. Their TV show's success depended on the public believing they were happily married. The golden cage was locked from the outside. This led to a bizarre arrangement where they performed as a loving couple on camera while living completely separate lives with other romantic partners, sometimes in the same mansion. A diary entry from Sonny in August 1973 reveals the cynical truth. "Connie and I live together as husband and wife, but my public wife is still Cher in order to maintain all the things I want right now." In February 1974, the facade finally cracked when Sonny filed for legal separation. Cher immediately countered with divorce demands, but even then, she had to agree to perform in lucrative shows with Sonny just to earn her freedom from Cher Enterprises. Their divorce was finalized in 1975. Cher later stated that if Sonny had simply agreed to split their assets 50-50, she would have never ever left. The battle over royalties continued for decades. As recently as May 2024, 26 years after Sonny's death, courts ruled his estate must continue paying Cher her rightful share. 4 couples, 4 fairy tales, 4 nightmares. What do they all have in common? The crushing pressure of fame that forced private turmoil into the shadows until it exploded. The corrosive power of addiction and control. And most disturbingly, the normalization of abuse hidden behind glamorous facades. These weren't just failed marriages. They were cautionary tales about what happens when the line between public performance and private reality becomes fatally blurred. Taylor and Burton's passionate fights became their brand until the performance turned into real violence. Lucy and Desi built an empire to save their love, but that empire became the weapon that destroyed it. DiMaggio's patriarchal jealousy sought to cage a free spirit, then possessed her in death when life failed him. And Sonny's protection of young Cher was actually sophisticated financial and emotional slavery. The ultimate irony, while their marriages ended in heartbreak, their love stories achieved a twisted form of immortality. We're still talking about them 60 years later, still fascinated by the beautiful disasters they created. But maybe that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones with happy endings. Sometimes they're the ones that serve as warnings about the human cost of living a myth. What shocked you most about these stories? Which couple's private reality surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed diving deep into Hollywood's darkest secrets, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. Next week, we're exposing the child stars whose careers destroyed their childhoods in ways that will make your stomach turn. Until then, remember, not all fairy tales have happy endings. Some of them are nightmares wearing beautiful masks.